Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It is an astonishing statistic. A child was referred to children's services in England and Wales every 49 seconds last year. The Local Government Association is warning that councils need more resources to help social workers keep children safe, claiming services face a £2 billion funding gap by the year 2020. The Department for Education said it was investing £200 million in new solutions, but those using children's services say what's needed is more investment in early intervention to prevent families falling into crisis, as our social affairs editor, Jackie Long, reports.
Baby P, 3-year-old Peter Connolly, Aisha Jane Smith, Kyra Ishak, just some of the children who died at the hands of the people who were supposed to care for them while they were supposedly under the watchful eye of social services. The price of failure has always been high.
Today's report highlights the pressure at the very sharp end. A child was referred to local authority children's services every 49 seconds last year. Now the Local Government Association say those services face such a huge funding gap that vital help and support which could prevent families from falling into crisis is disappearing.
Playtime for Alka Das and Jay. Alka says this children's centre, run for Buckinghamshire County Council by the charity Action for Children, has been a lifeline. She arrived in the area knowing no one. Her mother died 2 weeks before her son was born.
I mean, I can't explain how difficult it was to be in that situation, but it's really, really helped me in terms of being able to meet other people and feeling less isolated. I used the Healthy Mind service, which helped with postnatal depression and also the grief as well.
Alka's now fighting plans by the council, which could see around 35 children's centres closed in Buckinghamshire. The council says it will make their services better targeted, more reactive. But Alka says closing any of the centres is short-sighted.
You are actually helping at this stage now to stop these people going into depression, mental health issues. How big is the bill going to be when you are not intervening early? These centres are crucial.
It's Food Club Day. Parents can pick up bags of fresh food for a couple of pounds. It may feel a long way from the front line of social work, but things like this can play a big part in prevention. Melanie Adabite has been a social worker for 20 years. She says she's not surprised so many children are being referred to children's services.
After Baby P, I know that there was a sort of fear that there will be cases that will be missed. Children's Services is not coping. It's not coping as well as it could do if there were more resources. You know, we've got families under a lot more stress. We've got children that are experiencing the brunt of that. We have social workers that are literally in dire situation where they want to do but they can't, and we've got people leaving the profession because it's just intolerable in terms of the working conditions and what's being asked.
The Department for Education said in a statement they're driving improvements across every area of the child protection system and that they're investing £200 million to help councils test new ways of making sure that all children receive the support and care they need.
Well, joining me now to talk about this further is Guy Shannon, Chair of the British Association of Social Workers, and Jason Rock, who went through the social care system himself and now works with young people who are in the care system now. Jason Rock first, if you could give us a sense, if you would, why it was that you ended up in care yourself.
Well, Kathy, I was very young when I was taken into care. My mum was a young, struggling mum in poverty. Situation was very tough for her. The situation was really tough. She lost my 2 big brothers into the care system, which was increasingly difficult for her to manage us as children, me and my sister.
And just give me an insight. What went through your head as a child in care? What impact did that have on you growing up?
Well, I think a lot of kids in care, they go through some traumatic traumatic events in their life, and you know that can shape you, rest in your head as a child in a foster family or a children's home surrounded by professionals, not a feeling of uncertainty of not knowing which direction your life is going, whether your parents might have issues around alcohol or drugs, or there's many different aspects I feel to it, Kathy.
And that can be very long lasting, that
Of course. I think early intervention is key.
I'll come back to that point because, yeah, I do want to come back to that. But Guy Shannon, just tell us first, why do you think it is that there are so many more referrals now? Is it greater awareness, or is it greater poverty, or is it a combination? What's your view?
I think it's a combination. I think it's important to put these figures into a wider context, actually. And the wider context is one of public services being stretched right across the board. For example, on the programme, on your programme last night, there was the feature on the increased demand for A&E services. And it's the same picture in adult social care, and children's social care is no exception. And this is really the result of 8 years or more of austerity, which is basically cuts to local government spending, but also cuts to benefits and welfare reform, which has put immense pressure on the families who end up being referred to social care.
Well, I mean, the government does say that, you know, they've made £200 billion available to councils for local services, including children's services, up to 2019 to 20. I mean, what more do you want ministers to do?
Was that 200 billion or 200 million? But, yeah.
Billion, up to 2019-20, but that is all for local services. I mean, that covers a multitude.
Sure. I think I'd like to say a very warm welcome to the new Children's Minister, who I believe was appointed yesterday. And we'd like to invite him to do what the previous Minister didn't do, which was to lobby the Treasury for more resources for children's social care, which I think I think everybody involved in children's social care are saying the same thing. And we would back the Local Government Association when they're saying that we need to plug this £2 billion gap by the end of the decade.
I mean, you work with children in care now. What impact are you seeing because of spending cuts?
There's a great impact. I mean, young mothers and young families are struggling. Increasingly, I mean, it's an alarming rate, the referrals that are being made, and to the kids that are entering the care system. I think that with more government cuts to government agencies, it's increasingly difficult with the things like universal credit and working tax credit being cut for young mums. It's really difficult.
And you were talking about early intervention, how important that is. Why is that so crucial in your view?
I think it's just key to tackling and taking kids away from traumatic situations and letting them know that they have a chance in life. I mean, we shed this light on care that we kind of look at and we call it the care system, but I mean, if you look at, we need to kind of change our perceptions around that. I mean, there's loads of superheroes, for instance, that come from care. Batman, Spider-Man, you name it, you know, the list goes on. So we really need to focus on a lot more empathy and...
putting it in a more positive light.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, do you agree with that point about early intervention and how important it is? Or is there a danger that some of the reason we're seeing more referrals is because the authorities are intervening too early?
I think I agree entirely with what Jason said. The Association of Directors of Children's Services have called for greater investment in early intervention to reduce the demand on statutory child protection work. Many of the referrals that we're seeing are re-referrals. There was a study last year at the University of Manchester, which was commissioned by the government, which discovered that 50% of referrals in 1 year period ended up being re-referred over the next 5 years. And they found that in local authorities where social workers had more than 10 children in need cases, there was more chance of re-referrals. So what that's saying is that social workers need smaller caseloads so they can do the social work that they want to do, that families need, which is building relationships to offer support so that families don't end up coming back to be re-referred.
Guy Shannon, Jason Rock, thank you both very much for coming in. Thank you.